Pecharunt is an all-new mythical Pokemon that is finally available to use in Gen 9. And it might just be the most annoying new DLC Pokemon yet. This thing's signature move and signature ability are downright nefarious. However, this Pokemon isn't without its shortcomings, and it may actually struggle to keep up with the high power level of Gen 9 OU. Let's take a look at how Pecharunt could be used in Gen 9 competitive singles, and whether it's any good or not. But first, an emergency update. The infamous Pokemon Iron Mugulus, who many believed to be a reformed criminal, appears to be back to his old ways. Iron Mugulus is currently holding me captive on top of the world famous Sydney Harbour Bridge, as you can see in this image. The only way I'll be allowed to return back to civilization is if you subscribe to the channel as quickly as possible. Thank you. Pecharunt has a rather strange stat distribution, with a base stat of 88 in almost all of its stats. This seems to be a nod to Pecharunt's chain, which has a design resembling an 8. Only one stat sets itself apart, that enormous defense stat of base 160. Pecharunt has a nice type combination of Poison, Ghost, and the signature ability, Poison Puppeteer. This ability is absolutely dastardly. If Pecharunt inflicts poison on another Pokemon, that Pokemon will also become confused. Poison is already an excellent status effect on its own merits, so throwing confusion on top of it is obviously great. But that's not all, folks. Pecharunt can complement this ability perfectly thanks to its signature move, Malignant Chain. Very aptly named. This malignant move has a 100 base power and 100% accuracy, along with a 50% chance to badly poison the target. This is very similar to the move Sacred Fire, but it has an even higher accuracy. And as we know, when Pecharunt inflicts poison, it also inflicts confusion at the same time. In an ideal world, Pecharunt could absolutely tear through teams with this really high power attack that inflicts both poison and confusion. Being able to heal off the poison, recover your HP, or even counterattack is going to come down to coin flips. Pecharunt also has access to Hex, which is a ghost stab move that gets powered up when the enemy is statused, a perfect way to take advantage of poisoned opponents. With a pretty solid utility move pool, including the pivoting move Parting Shot and immediate healing in the form of Recover, along with that massive base defense stat providing a lot of natural bulk, this sounds pretty solid. There is a pretty big problem for Pecharunt though, and that problem is called Kingambit. Kingambit is among the most ubiquitous Pokemon in Gen 9 OU. It is the second most popular Pokemon in the format behind Great Tusk, with a usage of 28%. Although Pecharunt has a lot of excellent options in its move pool, it has absolutely no way whatsoever to hit Kingambit. Kingambit is immune to poison moves and the poison status effect. It resists Ghost, and it can super effectively threaten Pecharunt with its powerful stab, kowtow, cleave, or sucker punch. Pecharunt is so helpless against Kingambit that they can just swords dance in your face, and you can't do much about it at all. Access to Parting Shot does at least give you something to click on an incoming Kingambit. This is actually quite nice, since it'll nerf their attack and give you a free switch in with momentum. You also have Destiny Bond, which could allow you to trade with Kingambit. This might be a bit unreliable though. If they use Swords Dance or Sucker Punch, you'll reveal that you have Destiny Bond, and it'll be much harder to successfully trade. If you really wanted to, you could run Terra Blast with a fighting Terra type to try and lure in and eliminate Kingambit. This is a really big commitment and a potential waste of your Terra, but Kingambit is a high value target to get rid of. Fighting coverage does complement Ghost quite well too. Running Terra Blast would mean you have to sacrifice an important option like Recover or Parting Shot though. If Pecharunt sees any success in OU, it'll likely be as a bulky pivot and status spreader. The low speed and unfortunate weaknesses to Ground, Ghost, and Dark might make this difficult. The most noteworthy entry point for Pecharunt is Iron Valiant. You're immune to fighting and resist Fairy, making Pecharunt a decent switch in. But even this isn't entirely solid. With the rise of Galarian Slowking as an Iron Valiant check, some Iron Valiants have adapted and begun to run options like Shadow Ball and Knockoff. These also help out against Goldengo. And these coverage options also hit Pecharunt really hard. Speaking of Galarian Slowking, it's a bit hard to justify using Pecharunt as a bulky poison type pivot compared to this much better option. Thanks to Regenerator, Galarian Slowking has a good way to shrug off damage even from super effective hits, and also has a much easier time pivoting. Unfortunately, almost every popular threat in OU right now has some way to hit Pecharunt, and there are way too many roadblocks for Pecharunt's poison plus confusion game plan to get off the ground. Not only do you invite in Kingambit with open arms, items. Gliscor is currently everywhere, and it's usually pre-poisoned. Hex will do decent damage to them, but with Chip Heal on their side and super effective Earthquakes, it's not a fantastic 1v1 situation. If Hex is your move of choice, you won't be able to hit Gholdengo particularly hard, even with the super effective damage. You can't poison them because they're immune, and they can hit you back with a massive stab Shadow Ball. It also doesn't help that Gholdengo can punish you for using Parting Shot. Good as Gold will prevent the pivoting effect from happening at all and completely halt your momentum. It's going to be pretty difficult for Pecharunt to find a place on competitive teams in Gen 9 OU with all of these obstacles in its way, and I'd say it's likely that it will fall down to UU in the next tier shift. In the UU metagame, Pecharunt might have a bit more success. Without Kingambit or Gholdengo to ruin your fun, Malignant Chain and your Ghost Stab are a bit more effective. The biggest roadblock is probably Hisuian Gudra, with its poison immunity and excellent special bulk. But at least this guy isn't as ubiquitous as Kingambit is. Parting Shot is much safer to click in UU, and will be more effective as a momentum generator. With high defense, fairy resistance, and super effective poison stab, Pecharunt will be pretty effective against Azumarill, who is a very popular physical attacker at the moment. Pecharunt's natural bulk will also just be more useful in this lower power level format. But even in UU, I think Pecharunt might struggle. Garganical is currently legal in UU and is very common. Garganical resists poison, is immune to status completely, and even takes less damage from ghost type moves thanks to its purifying salt. Garganical can also take advantage of the switch in opportunity nicely with Salt Cure or Stealth Rock. Iron Treads will be another big roadblock. It is also immune to poison, very naturally bulky, and outruns and threatens you with ground stab. Garchomp is UU ranked 2 at the moment. Although Garchomp can't quite switch in safely at risk of being poisoned and confused, just the presence of this fast ground type in the format is going to make your life pretty difficult. Pecharunt seems to just have an unfortunate typing for its role. As a slower, bulkier pivot and status spreader, you really need solid opportunities to enter the field. But those weaknesses to ground, ghost, and dark just make that very difficult. Pecharunt could definitely survive in UU, but I would personally expect it to be a mid to low tier choice in the format if it does. Overall, I have to admit that I am not a big fan of the design of this Pokemon. If this Pokemon ends up being viable in any format, I think it will just serve to make that metagame worse by adding more variance and frustrating situations. Confusion is one of my least favorite mechanics in the Pokemon games, and I honestly dislike any attempt to make it better or bring it into relevance. The fundamental idea of this Pokemon is annoying at best, and even that fundamental idea doesn't work very well due to its unfortunate weaknesses and limitations, which is probably for the best. It is my hope that this absolute runt takes its toxicity elsewhere. But what do you think, folks? Do you like Pecharunt? Do you think I've been a bit disrespectful? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.